Great. Well, thank you very much for staying in here for the Audacious Wellbeing session. I think we'd all agree that it's been a very inspiring and impactful day. And it's great to be here. I know I speak on behalf of all the team. It's a privilege to be here, to be a part of what God's doing in the area of mental health and wellbeing in the nation, and also through our local churches. So thank you for having us. This afternoon is all about equipping. So we're here from Audacious Church, and you've heard Julie talk this morning about how Audacious Wellbeing was born, and some of the journey that we've been on since then. But in this session in particular, we're going to give you a closer look at the course itself. But before we dive in, I just thought it would be nice to do a few introductions. So I'll start, and then we'll just head down the row and introduce ourselves to you. So my name is Leanna. I have an academic background in psychology, and I got involved in Audacious Wellbeing in 2019 when Julie was putting the course together. And I now work in the wider resilience profession in Cabinet Office, Resilience Directorate, and their Emergency Planning College.
Woo, impressive, I reckon. So you've met me, I'm Julie. I'm a psychotherapist, and previous to that, I was a pastor with Stuart, working together in pastoral care for many years, but now work as a psychotherapist in private practice and lead Audacious Wellbeing.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel. I am actually a lawyer, so a little bit different to these guys. I don't have any sort of clinical background, but I was a past participant of the Wellbeing course in 2020 and now help with leading the small groups, so that's why I'm here.
Fab. Hi everyone, I'm also a member of the Wellbeing team. I work in Manchester for a social prescribing service, and I lead on our young person's pathway and our community engagement. And I'm also leading on a youth version of the course that we're going to be developing and hopefully running a pilot of at the end of this year.
Hi everybody, I am Joyce Ame. I am a medical doctor. I've been a doctor for over 30 years. Initially trained in pediatrics, but now I am a GP. And I was instrumental in starting the Wellbeing course all the way at the beginning.
Fantastic. And that's a little bit about us. So let's get going and dive straight in. During this session, we are going to tell you about 5 things. We're going to tell you about the people that the Audacious Wellbeing course is for. We're going to have a look at the product, what's inside the course package, and we're going to look at some of the processes involved in rolling that out in local church. Then we're also going to have a bit of a sneak peek, a bit of a preview of what it's like to be in a session before finishing, of course, with a final P on potential, looking at next steps for Audacious Wellbeing and where you might like to be involved. So let's get started. Joyce, I'm coming to you first. People. Who is Audacious Wellbeing for?
Oh, that's a good question. Who is Audacious Wellbeing for? I think we all know, don't we, who needs this Wellbeing course. We know there's a big demand for wellbeing services. That's why we are all here. And we think about in our local communities who needs the help the most. And the pandemic hasn't helped. We think about the single mother at home with a child struggling, the lonely elderly person at home as well, feeling quite isolated. We think about the young adult who is struggling with identity in the world, in the working world. We also think about people who have been traumatized by life. Because let's be honest, life can be hard. And for me particularly, I think about those groups, especially those ethnic minority groups in which mental health is still very much a stigma. It's a taboo. It's not spoken about. That's who this course is for. But also, this course is for those people who actually have good mental health at the moment. Because, like we mentioned earlier, life will happen. So this will equip them with tools that they can use when life happens and they don't need to go down that rabbit hole of poor mental health. That's what this course is for.
That's fantastic, Joyce, thank you. And so what I'm hearing there is, I guess what Julie had said earlier, that the course is about prevention and intervention.
Absolutely.
And it was born out of a vision for an audacious alternative to the mental health and wellbeing crisis that we're facing. And that actually it's for church and the community.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yes. Great stuff. Joe, if I come to you next, can you tell us about the course as a product? What's inside? What's on the inside?
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of summarize, when we talk about the course, we always talk about 3 key principles. The first one is psychologically informed and evidence-based. The second is personal stories. And the third is faith-based. And all of these 3 principles are interwoven throughout the course.
Fantastic. And would you mind just expanding on each of those 3 principles for us, Joe?
Absolutely. So to start with, psychologically informed. So as Julie's been speaking about, the course is based on CBT principles. So we look at the vicious cycles in people's lives that have an impact on their mental health. So we look at thoughts, emotions, behaviours and physical symptoms, and look at addressing each of these 4 areas. Just on the topic of physical symptoms, we have something called the Calm Down Toolkit throughout the course, and this is a series of grounding and breathing exercises on every week of the course that people can instantly access to support with some of those physical symptoms and practice throughout the course, so they have some instant access to support. And then throughout the course there is a high level of teaching on different concepts around mental health. We've been talking about our kind of strapline, which is equipping people to thrive, and all of our course titles, which I think are up there, have very, I guess, empowering language. So it's about healthy body, healthy thoughts, healthy emotions. I'm testing my knowledge now, but all about empowering people to learn about different areas of their mental well-being and some practical tools they can take away from those areas. And I think an important point to make is we kind of take people on a journey during the course. So we start and look at things like stress and ease into some of those conversations, and then that moves into conversations around our emotions, and eventually we touch on things like loss and grief, and by that point you're in week 6 of the course, you're really comfortable with your group, and we find people feel that safe space to share really openly and honestly. I just want to again stress the high standard of teaching throughout the course. There's therapists, GPs, social prescribers and other experts in the field that have written the content. So yeah, that's the psychologically informed element, and then we've got personal stories, which really brings it to life and normalizes these conversations. We kind of remove that distance between like the speakers and the people on the course. We share our own stories of struggles with mental health, where those practical tools have been really beneficial for us, and as well where God has come through, just to, as Julie's been saying, change the narrative around our mental health and look at it as we're all going through something, we're all on a journey, and some of us have had a positive experience where the course and the tools on the course have had a positive benefit.
Fantastic. And that covers really well 2 out of the 3 principles, but you haven't caught me out. There's a third still to come, and that's the faith element, the all-important part there for us as local church, well, all being important, but one point I'd like to draw out. How is it, Joe, that biblical principles and faith perspectives anchor the course and are embedded in the session content?
Yeah, I think the best way to talk about the faith-based element is to really start to talk about some of the building blocks of a night on the course. So when people arrive on the night, whether that's online or in person, we have a bit of welcome time, maybe a quick icebreaker just to ease people into the nights. We then move into some of that interactive teaching that we've been talking about, which interweaves scripture throughout. So we bring the Bible into these different CBT concepts, and as well as incorporating scripture into the teaching, we also have moments of encounter throughout the course, particularly on weeks where it may be particularly relevant. So for example, on week 4 of the course, we talk about healthy emotions. We start to talk on things like acknowledging our emotions, but also how do we improve our mood. And one of the points is around gratitude and also praise. And so we have moments of worship and encounter on those nights to really kind of cement that and the benefit that worship and encounter can bring. And then after we've had the teaching, we move into our small groups where the therapeutic element of the course comes in. So all the facilitators are trained to deliver, help people just work through the content basically, to reflect on the content, talk about anything that maybe stood out to them or any personal experiences that they would like to share. And then we move into homework, which is a really key point when it comes to CBT. What are we going to do next? What are we going to take away from tonight and practically implement? And then that all kind of gets wrapped up with prayer at the end of the night. So we invite people who would like prayer, or we would like prayer into their situation, to request that, or as a group we will pray together. And it might be that they want to invite God into a particular area of the well-being that's kind of resonated on that night.
That's so helpful. That's really clear. Thank you, Joe. And Julie, if I just bring you in here, I'm sure some people might have noticed, I certainly have, Joyce has emphasised that Audacious Wellbeing course is for both church and community, so people with a faith and with none. And yet Joe's also explained really articulately how faith building blocks are put in place to create the sort of rhythm of the course week by week. So what happens if you advertise the course and someone from the community turns up in the midst of all of that? What does it look like?
No, it's such a good question, and that's happened many times. So Magda's story that I shared earlier, she was referred to the course by her domestic violence support worker. She wasn't a person of faith, and what a key part of our course is what we call our pre-course conversation. So everybody who expresses an interest in the course or who's referred to us has a one-to-one pre-course conversation, and sort of as a professional, I would probably call this a soft assessment, but it is done in such a way as we ask some key questions of the person. But also what we do is we give very, very clear information that this is a faith-based course. There will be times where we'll say, would anyone like us to pray for them? But if someone doesn't want that, they just say no. So we're explicit from the beginning that it's faith-based, but we've had many people on the course who aren't Christians, and they have engaged really well. And in our research, we actually really dug into that and asked those questions. Did people that weren't Christians find the course feasible and tolerable to do? And the answer was most definitely yes. So that was good to hear.
Brilliant. That's really helpful and actually leads really well into our processes element. But just to tie off the product, Joe, in person or online? So
both. Is the short answer. So the course was designed to be delivered in person. As a church, we have delivered both. Predominantly, we've run courses online due to the pandemic and also the wide coverage of the church, but it's absolutely designed to be delivered in person. And I guess it just depends on your church context and where you feel like that will fit best.
That's super. So moving now onto those process aspects, what it actually looks like to set a course up, to roll that out, to deliver the sessions. Would you mind speaking to that for us and telling us some more? Yeah, definitely. So step 1 would be promotion within church, and that included for us on our social media pages. And then once we've promoted, we invite people to express their interest in the course. So that is an online form where you would say, this is the reason why I might like to be involved in the course based on what I've heard. And we would also ask that person to scale themselves on a scale of 0 to 10 when it comes to their well-being. And that's a scaling measure that we use throughout the course. So upon that first form, and then throughout the course just to measure any changes. But that scale is, we say 0 is what we would describe as barely surviving when it comes to your mental health. So day to day, really, really struggling.
and a 10 would be I'm thriving, things are as good as they could be. And it really just gives us a good indication of where someone's at. And that leads nicely into our pre-course conversations where somebody's filled in the expression of interest and they're invited to a bit of a further chat with one of the team.
Great, and obviously Julie's touched on those pre-course conversations already, and so everybody who submits an expression of interest has a pre-course conversation, right? So Joyce, you've delivered some of those pre-course conversations, if that's the right way to discuss it. What's that actually like?
Yeah, so the pre-course conversations really are a very low-key, very soft and gentle conversation between the members of the team and somebody who's given their interest. And it's really to find out whether this course is right for that person at that point in time. It's asking them the questions about where they are in their mental health, doing the scaling questions like we mentioned before. And it's just really for us to gauge whether that person is whether this course is right for the person who's, registered their interest. It's also to make sure that the course is right for the other participants. There'll be no distractions or interruptions as well.
That's great. And Rachel, you've been a participant on the course, so you've been on the other side of that conversation.
Yeah.
Let's balance it out. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, fairly similar to what has already been said. It was just maybe a half an hour phone call. The person who was part of the team introduced themselves, gave me a bit more information around the course, what to expect. They asked about my kind of context for expressing interest, why I wanted to be a part of the course, what was going on in my life at the time that was causing me to kind of look into that stuff, I guess. And then just standard questions, which I think you'd probably expect on anything like this, around whether I had any struggles with addiction of any kind, whether I was in any sort of turbulent relationship or had any family issues going on, just to kind of weed out, I guess, not weed out, but identify whether there were any red flags or issues that the team needed to be aware of.
That's super. That's really helpful to get the insight from both sides of the conversation. So people have expressed an interest, you've advertised, they've expressed interest, they've had their pre-course conversation. Joe, back to you. What does the process look like from there?
Yeah, so once we've gone through that process, we then look at allocating those individuals to their small group that they will be with during the course. And that pre-course conversation, it really helps to identify just any information that will be helpful to put that person in the right group, any barriers. One thing I just wanted to comment on is something that's always stood out to me about the course is the focus has never been on someone's diagnosis. When it comes to their mental health, we want to make sure the course is right for the individual at the time. But if somebody's got a mental health diagnosis and they're managing well, they've got that managed and they're able to partake in the course, that does not exclude them, and that's something that's really always resonated with me as something really, really important to the work that we're doing. So they're allocated to a small group, and we've tried different things at Audacious. So we've tried groups with more males, we've tried groups with young adults, and in a recent course we had a group of young professionals who were able to just open up that little bit more because they were all going through a similar life stage and just were able to share in that group setting about any struggles and any kind of similar thoughts and feelings they were facing. And then following the small group, they're invited to come on the course, and throughout the course we give opportunities for feedback so that anyone on the course can say what are they enjoying, are they benefiting from the content, and have they got any feedback that they would like to give us to improve the nights. And the final bit I just wanted to touch on is WhatsApp group support throughout the course. So we'll set up a WhatsApp for each small group and that'll be available throughout the course, it's usually used to just check in on how homework's going and what people are up to in terms of their well-being from the following week.
That's fantastic. So there's a real sort of sequence of process steps there for rolling the course out. There's also the content, the session content, which flows week after week. And Rachel, if I come to you now.
Yes.
This process is now a part of your story, isn't it?
Yep.
And you're there, you've done these bits of the process, you're there, you're in the sessions, you're on Audacious Wellbeing. What was your experience? And would you share some of your story with us?
Yeah, of course. So I guess in terms of some context, was brought up in a Christian family, had been attending Audacious and quite involved for probably about 6 years at this point. And in 2018, and never struggled with mental health really, had a very stable life, was very blessed with that. And then in 2018, one of my friend's fathers died quite suddenly, and I was confronted with trauma, I guess, and grief, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. I was really struggling with my faith as well, and thinking, why, God, would you let this happen? He was a Christian man, they're a Christian family. It didn't make any sense to me. And it really pushed me into, what is my faith? And I kind of reached a bit of a point in 2020 where I just really needed some extra help. I wasn't processing things very well. I was quite angry. And this came up, and it seemed like the right thing. So, and I think it was really, the pre-course conversation was quite a strange thing for me, quite humbling, because I hadn't really ever needed to seek out help like that. So it took me to a different place, I suppose. But the whole course was brilliant, start to finish. And it took me from being very low. I think in the first week I scaled a 3 out of 10, which when I think back now to that time, that's really low, especially for me. And yeah, just week on week, it built up, it built on different things. There was tools and calm down toolkit, which I think Joe mentioned, with kind of techniques and breathing exercises to look at and practical things to do. There was some life hacks with like a stress bucket example, which I think Julie had mentioned earlier. And yeah, it transformed things for me, not overnight, and I don't think any of us see that happening with mental health. It is a process, but with the biblical aspect as well, I just reached a different point by the end of the 8 weeks. And not only was I feeling kind of better in my own mental health, but my relationship with God was also transformed because of delving into the biblical aspects of all of this stuff. And actually, the Bible says, as Julie mentioned before, that we will have trouble, but it also says to take heart because Jesus has overcome the world. And I just think with mental health and things like this, we have to take it to him. We can't just push it down. And that's what I'd been doing, and it doesn't work. And yeah, so I'm in a totally different place off the back of that.
Wow. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing so honestly and being willing to invite us into your story. And actually, if we change to the preview slide, I suppose really what you've been telling us of your experience is a bit of a preview in and of itself. But actually, I just have to bring this up because I keep hearing about this bucket. I've heard about the stress bucket a couple of times today. And so in terms of preview, obviously for those who haven't done the course, what's this stress bucket all about? Give us an example of something that equipped you in the session.
So I can't remember off the top of my head which week it is, but the stress bucket is basically a way of kind of visualizing what happens in our life. So if you think of your life as a bucket, and the clouds are different things that pour water into your bucket, and sometimes if there's no kind of outlet, nothing to relieve some of that pressure, it just feels like an overwhelming, overflowing bucket of water. And what we try and talk about in the Wellbeing course is how to think about taps to alleviate and to let out some of that water. So a lot of the time, I think some of us, me definitely included, have sort of unhelpful taps. So maybe food that we might go to, or unhealthy relationships, maybe addictions. But there's also a lot of healthy taps, so exercise, nutrition, finding people to do activities with. And it's just really thinking about, okay, what are the clouds that are filling my bucket, and what taps do I need to think about and to switch on when I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. So it was really helpful and a really good visual exercise, like I think was mentioned before. Different people have different learning styles, and this was a really, really great kind of visual thing that if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can think, right, my bucket, which tap do I need today?
Brilliant. Evidence informed, but super practical. I love it. And so we're coming in to land now. We're on our fifth and final P. We want to talk, Julie, about the potential of audacious wellbeing. What next steps are planned for the course?
Amazing, and thanks everyone. It's been incredible to hear you all. And so the potential next step. So we're actually in the exciting process now of preparing and packaging the course to be able to roll it out. So you've heard us talk a lot about what we've been doing in Audacious, but the interest in the course is so much that we're now actually getting it ready, packaged, to be able to then put it into the hands of local churches so they can also use it as well.
That's fantastic. And so, but what actually do local churches need to be able to run this course? Okay, it's being packaged, but tell us more.
Yeah, so the idea, and we are still working on this, so actually your input today is really useful to us. So if you've got sort of ideas that you want to share with us about how the course could work for you, because we haven't recorded it yet, it means we're actually still in that process of being able to use inputs and things we're learning to do that. But the ideas that we have at the moment is that in order to run the course in your local church, you would need 5 people as a minimum. So one of those would be what we would call a project leader. So it doesn't have to be someone on staff. We're all volunteers, so none of us are paid to do this. So a project leader, so somebody who's got some sort of professional background. It could be a GP, it could be a mental health nurse, a social worker, someone who understands a bit about risk management to really give it a robust feel. Then you'd need 3 volunteers that could be trained as facilitators. We always run a small group with two facilitators, but we've often found we need a sub in case someone's poorly. So 3 facilitators and someone to do a couple of hours of admin a week. So that would be your 5 people. You would need to have safeguarding policies in place. You would need to be DBS checked, and that's quite obvious, and also to have some indemnity insurance in place. And we can talk to you a bit more about how we have done that to make sure that it's underpinned well around risk management. And lots of things we've talked about today, a safe space in your church building or community centre, but they're the sort of main things that people would need.
That's great. And in terms of actual very practical volunteer hours for those individuals, what did we say about maybe 5 hours a week? Was that the experience that
I think you maybe said
personally?
3 if you're a facilitator. When the course is actually running, about 3 hours a week. Yeah. For that project leader, probably looking at about 5 hours a week. So
fantastic. And how would Audacious Wellbeing equip others who might be interested in doing
Yeah, so the idea we have is that we would do a half-day training for the project leader. So either you would come to be trained with us or we would come to you, if it was perhaps a group of local churches, and then we would do a day's training for your facilitators, and then there are options around whether you access ongoing support and consultation from us as you deliver the courses.
Great, so the key message I'm hearing there is you're not alone, we'll work with you. I guess, yeah, fantastic. And finally, how can people find out more? I think we already know the answer.
Joyce, why don't you tell us?
So you can go to the website, Audacious Wellbeing. There are leaflets at the back here with a QR code that you can scan, and that will also take you to the Wellbeing. We are here until the end of the evening. If you want to meet each and any one of us, we'll be able to talk to you about it.
Fantastic. So there you go. We've talked about the course. We've covered the people that it's for, the product that it offers, some of the processes involved in rolling it out. You've seen a bit of a preview of what is involved in the sessions and also heard the potential going forwards. Thank you very much for having us. Please do come and visit us at the stand to find out more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I don't think I need that. Thank you. That's amazing. You know, as a commissioner, when I used to commission mental health services, if I had this team of people, I would have sorted Birmingham completely. I just wanted to say just how professional and how brilliant this team is. Can we just give them another round of applause? And they are all volunteers, and I can see just how this could work in our churches, certainly in my denomination. So I'm really enthusiastic about this course and what it develops to. So thank you so much, Julie, and thank you so much to your team as well.